Welcome, everybody, back to Insights from the Couch. We have a great episode for you today. We have Dr. Vonda Wright. So excited to have her. She is a double board certified orthopedic sports medicine surgeon who serves athletes and active people of all ages. She is a passionate advocate and educator of women across their lifespan, especially in perimenopause and menopause. She is a speaker, researcher, and author of 4 books, including Fitness After 40. She is frequently quoted in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and more. She is also the founder of Women's Health Conversations, a conference hosted in Lake Nona. It will be there November 8th and 9th. Colette and I will be there. We are so excited to have you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to meet new neighbors here in Central Florida.
We're thrilled to have you. And maybe you could tell us a little more about your unique specialty, because you're not the typical orthopedic surgeon.
You're so right. And I'm not typical for several reasons. 94% of all my colleagues in the whole country are men. And, bless their hearts, if you ever want advice on how to thrive working in an environment of 94% men, I've got you. I know how to do it. I've been successful. And they're just great. We communicate so differently. I'm going to go down that road since we're sitting on a couch. I mean, you mentioned Women's Health Conversations, which is a summit coming up in November, but I called it that because if we were together, we would be sitting around the table facing each other, right? Mm-hmm. And we would be exchanging ideas and asking questions and all the things, the way women communicate. The way that I envision it happened after the Second World War, when women came back out of the factories, right? During the Second World War, women went to work and they built the rockets and they built the ammunition, right? Then they came back to their communities and they would gather and they would talk and they would solve world peace and talk about everything women talk about. Well, that is the way women communicate, whether it's women sitting around their kitchen table. If we were together, it would be a doctor and 2 licensed therapists. It might be a lawyer. Doesn't matter what our qualification. We're still going to face each other. That is not how men communicate.
Right.
We had 3 men in a room. They would be sitting in parallel on your couch, throwing out facts like, you see did you see the game? Did you see that kick? Oh yeah, I saw that kick. And men exchange facts, women exchange ideas. So that's what makes me different as an orthopod. And I love those guys. I mean, there are a couple guys in town I trained with. They're just brilliant. And I just bring it from a different way. So that's number 1. Number 2 is I am a whole person orthopod, meaning if you come into my office with a frozen shoulder, which many people do, frozen shoulder is one of the things that happens in midlife and to midlife women because estrogen walks out the door. The orthopod in me is going to set out a plan for how we're going to get it moving, and may inject it and all the medical type things. But the whole person in me is going to maybe identify for you at this first time in your life that because you're 46 and your estrogen is walking out the door, you're not sleeping, you're not eating, you've got hot flashes, night sweats, brain fog. Ugh. Because many women come in to talk about their shoulder and walk out with a roadmap for how to manage midlife. That is taking care of the whole person. Because do you know this? You probably know this, but many of your listeners might not know this. But when estrogen's walking out the door, it's like reverse PMS. Remember, some women have very bad PMS and their minds respond to the fluctuations in estrogen. Our brains are filled with estrogen receptors, and imagine all of those being empty. Ooh. And so what happens is because many, many doctors, and we can get into why this is, but through no fault of their own, don't realize that this is the cause of this brain fog and swings and not feeling like themselves. The amount of SSRIs prescribed in midlife skyrocket 25%, when all women might need is some estrogen and some cognitive behavioral therapy to get coping mechanisms for dealing with this, right?
Wow.
So that's the kind of conversations that this orthopod has. Yes, we'll take care of your physical joint problem. I do new technology and surgery all the time, but we're going to take care of you as a whole person, not as a body part.
Just for our listeners, we can use Laura and I as sort of an avatar because Laura's 47.
I just turned 47. And I'm feeling some of these things you're talking about. The creep. It's not like knocking me off my center, but it's definitely, I'm waking up in the middle of the night, a little bit. I do feel like that hard edge of moodiness for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
Like I did when I was younger that I thought I had totally gotten through. I'm a runner and I lift weights all the time and my elbow's all screwed up. Do you need a plan? I've heard you say like you should have a plan for hormones. And I'm like, I don't have a plan.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I have a male doctor. My OB gynecologist. I had what's it called? Mirena IUDs. And I took them out because my husband has a vasectomy. And I started getting these periods that were like, they felt like an act of God. Like they were so outrageous. Nothing I'd ever experienced. Yeah. I mean, not to be gross, but I did not think I could sit through a session without like hemorrhaging on my chair. So I was like, this is not going to work. So I had an ablation. Mine was successful. But as a result, I have Hashimoto thyroid disease. So I do get my hormones tested. And even though I'm 51, the most recent test showed that I'm in perimenopause, not menopause yet, but I know it's like knocking at the door. And, my endocrinologist is the one who suggested I take progesterone. My gynecologist said, you're fine. When we figure out when you're in menopause, then we'll see if you need anything. That's the extent of what I've been told or given. So what do women like us need to know and do? Because we can't be alone.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Let's unpack all of that. Let's start with just what's going on with biology, because I think none of us ever talk. Just in the same way, we may or may not get a talk at puberty. Nobody gets a talk about what's happening.
Yes.
No, they don't.
Right. Okay, I'm going to say this out loud. Women are not just designed or important for our reproductive years.
Thank you.
We are not, that is not the sum total of our capacity or value to the world. Therefore, we don't need to be fertile our whole lives. And biology knows this. We were designed in this way. But okay, I'm going to get off that soapbox. When we are born, think about this as a mind-blowing concept. When we are born, our little infantile, they're like this. Our little infantile ovaries have all the eggs we're ever going to have. Oof. All of them. You're born with your capacity for eggness.
It's wild.
I made that up, eggness.
I love it.
So then we go through puberty and our ovaries start working. They wake up every month. We produce a number of eggs. But I'm going to tell you for sure, ladies, by the time you get to be in a kind of a socially acceptable age to have children, in the 1400s, it was 14 and okay. But we get to a place where, let's have some children. We have a fraction of our eggs left to the point that when we're 40, we have 1% of our eggs left. That's why at 35, yes.
That's nuts.
That's why at 35, we start becoming infertile. Ooh. It's because we have so few eggs left. And now with the millennials, my own children are doing this. Millennials are the first generation. The oldest millennials are like 45 now, are the first generation of women who have taken 10 years. They may be in relationships, 10 years to really settle in, to want to start a family, to couple, whether you're married or not. That used to happen in my generation. I'm 57. If you weren't married by the end of college, oh my God, you grabbed somebody and got with it, right?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't do that, but lots of my friends did, right? Yes. And so at 22, but now 30, 32, to the point where for my female residents, orthopedic surgeons, if you go straight through, do not get out until you're about 36.
Wow.
Right.
Ladies, if you're thinking about children, I might think about freezing my eggs.
Yeah.
But the way that fits into this is that by 40, you have 1% of your eggs left. So your estrogen starts to decline between 35 and 40. Your testosterone starts to decline. Men and women have both hormones. They're not sex hormones, they're hormones. So that's why you may enter 40s feeling amazing. I did. At 40, I was in the best shape of my life. I had just had a child. I was growing my career. And at 47, Laura,
I know, I'm so
thought I was
scared.
going to die.
You what?
Because
Say that again?
I thought I was going to die because of my perimenopause symptoms, night
Wow.
flashes, night sweats, hot flashes, brain fog. I had arthralgia, which is total body pain so bad. I'm an athlete. I couldn't get out of bed. But here's the deal. You do not have to wait until you get to be where I was, or like so many women in my generation were, because now with the menopause movement rising, women being more educated, here's the roadmap that you need to follow. Number one is menopause literacy. The first thing you and everybody listening should do is educate yourselves. You cannot let this whack you in the head like I did. And you cannot wait until some doctor suggests you think about it, because the fact of the matter is, because of the Women's Health Initiative study that came out in the 90s, an entire generation of doctors has not been taught about this. So they will not talk to you about it because they don't know, and not because they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't know. Why is women suffering okay? Why is there's this societal norm that we have accepted that we must be in pain all the time? I'm sorry, I'm about to start swearing.
You can swear.
That is so complete bullshit.
Yes.
Why do we accept that? It is not okay. Why do we accept painful sex when that happens with loss of estrogen? When there are 29 pills for erectile dysfunction.
Right.
Who do men think they're going to have sex with? women with dried up vaginas. Can we please get in some of this?
They think
right?
25-year-olds. That's what they're thinking. So wait a minute. I am so sold, and I feel like I'm late to the party because I'm 51.
No.
So let me ask you this. Like, let's say, and first of all, we're going to link to these books and resources that you mentioned in the show notes, as well as the Women's Health Conversations Summit, so that you can sign up to be with us and have more of these important conversations in November. But if I'm like, I want to do something, right? Like, I don't want to lose muscle mass and bone density, and I'm in. Where do I go? I mean, I have this gynecologist who's lovely, but he's about to retire. He's 70 years old. He doesn't know this stuff. Who do I turn to? How do I find somebody to help me figure this out?
We have a responsibility to exercise our agency. I would never say to a woman to stay uneducated.
Right.
Walk into your doctor's office with a knowledge. What I just spewed to you, memorize that.
Okay.
I mean, it's the basic information, number one. Number two, if you want help, thank goodness, there are now, and if we can't find it in Central Florida, there are several, but not enough doctors that really know how to do this. There's an online menopause platform that is a membership. They pair you with a doctor. The membership is not very expensive. They pair you with a doctor to go through everything, and then they send whatever you need to your house. It's called MyAlloy, MyAlloy.com.
Oh my God.
They only do menopause.
Love it.
Estrogen for your face, estrogen for your body, estrogen for your vagina, testosterone, micronized progesterone if you have a uterus and need it. So MyAlloy, number one, MyAlloy.com. Number two is MIDI, MIDI, MIDI Health. Same concept, takes insurance, uses nurses. Different business model. Number three, if you want one-on-one concierge care for menopause, just like if you come to me for, I have lots of these programs too. I should mention myself, actually.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. But Heather Hirsch first name Heather, Hirsch, HIRSCH, Collaborative. She is an internist who has trained an army of doctors, but it's one-on-one concierge care. I've actually partnered with a company called Opt, O-P-T, Opt Health. They send people to your house to do blood. They'll talk you through it. They're not just going to hand you, this happened to me. I was handed my blood work and said, it's fine, you look fine. So that's not enough. That's not enough. So
Not
I
enough.
partnered with Opt Health, and they went through each and every lab value. We did all the calculations, which I could have done myself, but I don't want to be my own doctor all the time.
Right.
You know what though? Let me tell you the experience I see with women in my practice who come in with like some crazy menopause symptoms, and they'll say, "I've gone to my doctor," and they won't do anything because they say I'm not in menopause yet. And
Well,
and this is what I get over and over again is like, oh my gosh, this is perimenopause and menopause, and you need some kind of help here. And they're not getting it from their average
that's right.
doctor.
Well, that's why these online sources
Yeah.
are good. And so, but I want to highlight what you just said. We lose our energy, our estrogen starting at 40. We do not have to wait till menopause. Menopause, for your listeners, is one day.
Wow.
We're either premenopausal while we're fertile, we're perimenopausal starting about 45. We're still a little fertile, but not as fertile in 45. Menopause is the day, one day, it's like a birthday, 366 days after your last period. For me, it was
Oh.
on my 51st birthday because I had my period on my 50th birthday and then never had it again. So 51, oh, February 22nd, that's my menopause day. Most women don't know. I went straight to my interventional cardiologist. He put me on a stress test. He's like, Vaughn, your heart's healthy. I'm like, well, then why am I
Yeah.
waking up in the middle of the night with my heart racing like I'm going to panic? Oh, it's estrogen. Nobody told me that,
No,
right?
this is not, unless you go digging for the information, it's
Yeah.
not readily available. So, what about for listeners who are like me, where the only real symptom I have, I do wake up in the middle of the night, but I've kind of always been that way. So, it's hard for me to know what's really perimenopause. And I won't know when my menopause day is because of not having periods
You're
at all.
right.
But I don't have a ton of symptomology. I feel pretty good. Is it still, am I still somebody who should, I mean, just in your opinion, I know you said everyone's different, but is it still worth it for me? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm vain too. I want to put estrogen on my face and vagina. Like, I want to look good.
Yeah.
And of course, I want to be healthy.
Yeah. Many people become incontinent. Women die of urosepsis, uh, which is bladder infections, incontinent, fractures, brain fog. Did you know that osteoporosis is directly linked to Alzheimer's disease? Because
I
the
didn't.
bone are, yep, the bone is so important as a master communicator in the body. So it's not just about the symptoms we have, it's about our longevity. But let's say, because the truth of the matter is only about 7% of all women in the country are currently hormone replacing. What about the 93%? I don't want anybody walking away from this podcast thinking that all hope is lost. Two things we've already talked about: menopause education, make your hormone replacement decision. Number three, we must, starting in midlife, lift weights. We must lift weights. If you have 1 hour a day, you must lift weights. And I am not talking about the mamby-pamby pink weights that we were taught to lift 20 to 30 times. In order to build muscle mass, we must lift heavy. My bench press is heavy enough. I can only do it 4, and then I start to need a spotter because I can press out 1 or 2 more, but that's it.
Wow.
Only
What's
working
that
at
weight,
that.
Vonda, for you? What's that weight? Like,
I
what are those
it's 70.
dumbbells?
Listen, my bench press is only 75 pounds. It's not world class, but for me,
No.
that's 4
That's
reps, right?
Yeah.
impressive.
So lift weights, but then you must feed your muscle. Women have been taught to calorie restrict and try to be as small as possible. That also is bullshit. We need to feed. You will never be metabolically happy or healthy by only losing weight, because when we lose weight, we lose 50% muscle and 50% fat. The
Wow.
way I like to frame it is we are recomposing by building muscle and feeding yourself enough protein. You will lose fat and you will gain muscle. So how do we feed our muscle? We eat anti-inflammatory nutrition, which means focusing on fiber, focusing on green leafy vegetables, and focusing on protein. 1 gram of protein per ideal pound per day. So it takes a little bit of concentrated work, but when I add protein up for the women who come to see me in my office, it's usually 60 grams, 90, because they'll eat a salad with chicken at lunch, they'll skip breakfast, and whatever, it's just never going to be enough. So 1 gram of protein per ideal pound, which helps us build muscle, which is nature's Spanx, and makes us stronger and prevents falling down and frailty and works on our brains, all the things. So here's how in midlife we should work. We should do base training, which is essentially brisk walking every day for 45 minutes. And then twice a week, it can be anything: elliptical, walking, biking, rowing, alpine skiing machine, but at a low heart rate, so brisk.
So no running. Like you're not a fan of the jog.
If that keeps your heart rate at 130 to 140, sure.
It's probably over that though, right? I
Yeah, it's
mean,
probably 160, 170.
Yeah.
So it's not doing much.
Okay, I'm so excited. I want to like book it to the gym as soon as we get off the call.
I know.
You're making me so excited because it sounds like it really is possible to transform the way we age and feel better than ever, look better than ever, and be healthier than previous generations ever were in our 50s and beyond. 40s, 50s, 60s.
And these things we're asking you to do, they're strategic stress. You can have stress because you're ignoring yourself, you feel terrible, you're living in the dim light of fair, I feel fine.
Yes.
Or you can invest some energy into the process of living longer and healthier, and you can feel just like you just described.
I just don't think most people have this information the way you're putting it together, right? To educate yourself first, get the menopause literacy, midlife literacy, then you make decisions about your hormone replacement therapy and whether or not to do it and what to do. And then you really change your fitness in a way that most women, I think, are not doing.
That's right. And you know what? If you have listeners out there thinking, oh my God, it sounds so hard, it sounds like, I just want to remind women, men listening, people listening, because these things apply to men too, but don't forget that you have always done hard things, whether your hard things are an insurmountable job or getting through school or getting through lots of people you probably deal with have gotten through the hard part of living with anxiety and depression. And those, you have done hard things. There's a certain confidence in the memory of having done hard things that you can apply to this new thing we're asking you to do.
I love that.
Me too. And I love how you emphasize the confidence that comes with taking care of yourself this way and how alive your brain gets when you're really tuned into your health. I have to ask you, since you're so knowledgeable, and I want to have you on this podcast like every day.
Yeah.
I want to just sit in
I
a
want
room
you to
and-
come every time you want to, something new to talk about.
What is your take on alcohol, in general at midlife? Because it's, is there, in your opinion, and is there a healthy amount of alcohol? Is it no alcohol?
Especially for women in this phase.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Well, okay. It's not my opinion. What I'm about to say to you is well backed by science.
Okay.
Yeah.
That alcohol is a type 2 carcinogen that leads to cancer. It will destroy your brain. But here's the deal. I think we choose our poison. I'm Asian, so I don't have alcohol dehydrogenase. So even when I did drink, I would get all red and puffy and it wasn't beautiful. So I never drank that much. But when I did, it did all the things, I'd have a glass of wine. I'd feel more relaxed. I'm an introvert. You would never believe it. But I'm an extroverted introvert. So
Yeah.
put me in front of 10,000 people, I'm good. But at the end of the day, I need quiet to restore, right?
Yeah.
That's the real definition. So it makes me more gregarious. But then I didn't sleep well because people think alcohol is good for relaxing. Actually, it knocks you out. It doesn't restore you.
Right.
So I didn't sleep well. It is very hard socially
Yeah.
to have people draw that hard line. So I have personally decided not to drink. I encourage everyone I know to think about why you drink in the first place. And is there something, is it just social? Could you replace it with something less toxic in your hand and
Yeah.
still enjoy it?
Yeah.
But if you decide that you need a glass of wine or want a glass of wine, then I'm going to encourage you to stop at that low level, because anything good in the body, too little or too much, can be bad, right? So if you're going to have a glass of wine, then just stop with your glass of wine. But if you're going to drink the glass of wine and that's going to be your poison, then you better get lifting some weights.
Yeah.
And you better do the thing, and you
Yep.
better do the thing. I mean, it all adds up, and depending how you want to feel,
That's
right?
a really nuanced answer. I appreciate the
And I
layers
think
there.
and I think it's a really helpful answer because you acknowledge how difficult that choice is for so many people, just societally. I mean, alcohol, we've been brainwashed into thinking, for years they were saying, oh, yeah, the antioxidants in the red wine are good for you. And all of that's been debunked. And my takeaway from what you just said is that it destroys your brain and leads to cancer. So, whatever you're going to do, at least be empowered with the knowledge that this is indeed a dangerous drug. And if you wouldn't be so quick to pick up a needle and inject yourself with heroin, maybe it's time to reframe the way we think about lifting the glass.
And you know what's really troubling to me, and I don't know if you see this in your practices, but I've read, it's not what I do, I've read that there is a sharp rise in the consumption of alcohol in midlife women
Yes,
because they
definitely.
feel so terrible, because they don't have their estrogen and they're trying to feel better.
Yeah.
But
That's exactly
that is
right.
not okay with me. Alcohol for women in the pink bottles and the
Yeah.
skinny whatever, there are brands just for women, makes it look so sexy.
Yep.
Well, cigarettes look
I
sexy when
know.
Audrey
I
Hepburn put them
know.
on a
That's what I
black.
was just thinking of. I mean, I remember because I used to chain smoke, unfortunately. And I remember when I was a teenager driving into the city, I grew up in New York, there was this huge billboard for Parliament with this woman in like Santorini, the blue and white. And she looked like this Bain de Soleil goddess with her cigs. I mean, it was seductive. You wanted to
Yes.
smoke because you want to be like her. So when all of these celebrities endorse their favorite wine and put it in a pretty bottle, it gives us permission. And it's really a lie, just like cigarettes and the Marlboro Man.
That's right. He was something, but it wasn't a little cigarette, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, sexy, but not the cigs.
It wasn't.
Vonda, I know we have to let you go soon, but I have to ask a selfish question because I hear this all the time because I don't get to talk to an orthopedic surgeon very often. But I've been a runner since I was 30,
Yeah.
marathon runner, half marathons, the whole thing. I run a
Yeah.
lot. And I hear from my family all the time, you are an orthopedic surgeon's dream. You write their paycheck and you can't keep that up or you will have knee replacement, hip replacement. And I just need to know, is that
Okay.
true?
Are you hurt all the time, Laura?
When I ran marathons, I did get hurt a lot. I run half
Well,
marathons twice a year now.
here's why, in my opinion, in my experience, 30 years, runners are hurt a lot. It's because they don't cross train and they're the weakest athletes I take care of.
Yeah.
Think of it like a sports car. You have the world's biggest engine. Your heart and lungs are this miraculous act of God, and you're putting that in a Toyota Corolla, because runners don't lift weights. They don't cross train.
Okay.
They only run. Their butts are so weak that they get all these mechanicals. So the way for runners to stay healthiest and out of a doctor's office is to cross train with weights, get some of their mileage in with a bike, not just on the road,
Okay.
and feed themselves. Runners eat their own muscle. There is no evidence in the history of the world, orthopedic research, that running causes arthritis. Runners, in fact, if they haven't had traumatic injuries, have less arthritis because they're usually littler people, and joints bear 10 times body weight. So those are the two sides,
Okay.
right? Runners get hurt because of the things I said, but running does not cause arthritis. So you're off the hook.
Okay. I'll keep up the weights and the stretching
Yes.
and the eating.
Yes.
And yeah, got it. Yay.
Oh,
Yay.
this has been so wonderful. I mean, so much valuable information for our listeners. I feel like this conversation may have changed my life. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not even
Oh,
kidding you.
Same.
yes.
Same.
Thank
I am
you.
going to do so many things differently. I feel motivated. I feel hopeful. I feel excited. You know, one of our
Yes.
last episodes, we had a sexologist on talking about how the best orgasms happen after menopause. And now I'm finding out my brain can be on fire and my bones can be dense. I'm so grateful to live at a time when there's a revolution happening for women at menopause and midlife, and we can really be our best, and we have the knowledge and the power to do that. It's so exciting.
Yeah, I second that. And I have an OB appointment coming up in October, and I'm going to be having a very direct conversation, and we'll see how that goes.
And from a therapist standpoint, I don't know, maybe this will resonate. This is really the capstone for this time of life in my own experience. And it took me longer than most women to get to this place, but I don't necessarily think so. Arriving in this place, something about this age, which I don't even know what it means to be my age. It's because I feel like this is an ageless time in my life. I can define ageless what age I am, but I feel like this is the most authentic I have ever been. I get to be who I want, when I want to do it. I don't explain myself. I don't have to. I've proven to myself and others that I can do hard things and that I'm capable, right? So this is the most authentic time of life. And I hear that reflected in most of the women, the experts, the women that have gone through this, number one. So it's authentic, and it really is indefinable. I hold up my little crooked finger and I say, don't tell me what this is supposed to be like. I will tell you how I'm preparing to live the best of life. And so this is a place that we can get to in midlife that maybe when we look over our shoulder at 20 and 30, we hadn't arrived in yet because we were not yet living in the fullness of what it means to be a woman.
Let
I have
the choir
goosebumps, yeah.
sing. I mean, that is,
That's it.
I have goosebumps, and I
Same.
couldn't agree more. I feel more comfortable in my own skin than I ever thought possible. And there's nothing. That is the ultimate, Visa commercial, right? Priceless.
That's right.
Oh my gosh. Well,
All right.
thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Dr. Vonda Wright. And we are going to link to your website. You have a fabulous online program. There's a local practice for those Central Floridians who are listening. And then also the Women's Health Conversations Summit that is coming up in Lake Nona, Central Florida, November 8th and 9th. So please join us there. Laura and I will be there, and you have a fabulous lineup. Is there anything before we wrap up? Do you want to just give a little more information about the summit and what it is?
So I have brought together the most remarkable headlining leaders in women's health from all over the country to serve you. So it is going to be all about menopause, all about midlife. We're having speakers, not only Mary Claire Haver, the number one menopause expert in the country, Kelly Casperson, a urologist who leads the conversation on healthy sex and relationships. We're talking about preventive cardiology. We're talking about your brain. A local neurologist is coming. She's just fabulous. And then in the afternoon, guess what we're doing? We're going to teach you the principles of lifting and mindset, smart nutrition. We're going to talk about how to have great sex and relationships. We're going to talk about how to get access to care. And so I could not be more excited to equip women in Central Florida to really focus on living their best lives by bringing this to them. And I'm so thankful, I should say this out loud, that Advent Health has partnered with me to bring this to you, because it takes a village to care for people.
We're so excited.
So hopefully those of you who can, fly in if you live elsewhere. If you're in Central Florida, please come join us. It's going to be fabulous. This information has been invaluable. We hope you'll come back again, because I feel like we just began to tap into your wealth of knowledge, but you've given so many great takeaways. And don't forget to check out our website, insightsfromthecouch.org, for links to all of the resources that we're talking about right now. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.